What's up, Jets Nation? This is Show of the Jet Show, and today we're going to talk about 7 wideouts that we can acquire via free agency or via trade. But before we get into it, you know what time it is, right? It's showtime. One, two, three, four. What's up, good people? All right, so there are 7 wideouts that the Jets could possibly acquire via trade or via free agency. The first group is going to be free agency. The second group I'm going to talk about is via trade wide receivers. So, with that being said, we're going to start from my least favorite to my top favorite. Once again, they are my favorites via trade or via free agency. And we're going to start at the bottom. Number 3 spot coming in via free agency is none other than Mr. Curtis Samuel. Standing at 5'11", he's only 27 years of age. In 2023, he had 62 receptions, 613 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2022, he had 64 receptions, 656 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 2021, he had 6 receptions, 27 yards, 0 touchdowns. This was because of injury. 2020, he had 77 receptions, 851 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2019, he had 54 receptions, 627 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2018, he had 35 receptions, 494 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2017, he had 15 receptions, 115 yards, 0 touchdown. Of course, this was his rookie year. His expected salary that he'll be asking for his next contract could be anywhere from 10 to 15 million per year, and I think this guy is deserving of it. With a guy like Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball and Garrett Wilson at the number 1 spot, I think this guy could be absolutely electric for the New York Jets. Now, according to Draft Shark, they have him at about an 82% chance of injuries from their analysis. This is kind of one of the main reasons I made him my number 3 free agency versus the other 2. Now, my second one was almost my number 1. So my second one is kind of
number
like
2
in comparison to 1A. And that's none other than Mr. Marquise Hollywood Brown. Age 26, height 5'9". Now, one of the reasons that I wanted him as my top free agent is because he gives the Jets something different that we don't have. We haven't had since Robbie Anderson. That's a guy who can absolutely take the top off for defense. Now, you guys remember last season, almost every pass that we threw was about 15 yards or under. And the defensive coordinators who we played against, they knew how to design their plays around our scheme. They understood that we were not taking deep shots. But with a guy like Hollywood Brown, you would definitely have to take him in consideration when structuring your game plan. But Mr. Hollywood Brown in 2023 had 51 receptions, 574 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2022, he had 67 receptions, 709 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2021, he had 91 receptions, 1,008 yards, 6 touchdowns. This was absolutely his best year. 2020, he had 58 receptions, 769 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2019, he had 46 receptions, 584 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Mr. Hollywood Brown, once again, is my 1B. Almost my number 1, true number 1 guy to get in free agency. His expected salary could be anywhere from $8 to $12 million a year. I think he is well deserving of it. I think at any given moment, if Garrett Wilson goes down, he can be a number 1. In my opinion, he's done it before, so it's not a shocker if he would have to take that role. But if you have him as a number 2 receiver and G-Dub at the first, come on, man, that's an electric offense, in my opinion. Now, according to Draft Shark, they have him at about a 72% injury rate or chance of injury. And of course, this is based on their own analysis. How they come up with their formula, I couldn't tell you. All right, guys. So on to my number one wideout to acquire via free agency. That would be none other than Mr. Calvin Ridley. Standing at 6'1", age 29, Expected salary could be anywhere from $15 to $21 million a year or season, and I think he's well deserving of it. I think this guy can absolutely ball. He could easily be a clear-cut number one receiver, especially when healthy, especially when he has a solid or top quarterback throwing him the ball. There's a 34% chance of injury to Mr. Calvin Ridley, or a chance of injury, via Draft Shark, and of course their analysis. So in 2023, Mr. Calvin Ridley had 76 receptions, 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2022, he didn't play because of the gambling suspension via the NFL. 2021, he had 31 receptions, 281 yards, 2 touchdowns. He only played 5 games that season because of injury. 2020, he had 90 receptions, 1,374 yards, 9 touchdowns. That was absolutely his best year. And he had a foot fracture that year, and he still put up those numbers. What an amazing year for that guy. 2019, he had 63 receptions, 866 yards, 7 touchdowns. He also had an injury that day. He had a grade 2 abdominal strain. 2018, he had 64 receptions, 821 yards, 10 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley is absolutely clear-cut my number one guy, just based upon, you know, his height, his skill set, and the guy who, you know, has speed to him as well. Is he a Hollywood Brown speed type? No. Is he a Garrett Wilson type speed? Yes. And we all know that Garrett Wilson can get to it as well, and his route running ability is very clean. Being honest, I think him and Garrett Wilson style of play is very similar. So you almost kind of like the same type caliber guy as far as height, weight, speed, route running, etc., etc. But once again, he is the clear-cut number one. I see a lot of Jets fans would love to have Calvin Ridley. I've heard rumors that before Atlanta traded him to the Jaguars, the Jets had even had interest in him. So maybe that's something that they pick back up on. We'll see. And that's it for my free agents, guys. That's 3 out of the 7. Now, our next 4, we would have to acquire these guys via trade. And once again, I'm going to start from my least favorite, still a favorite, but I'm going to start from my least favorite, and then I'll go all the way up to my first favorite. So with that being said, coming in at the number 4 spot is none other than Mr. Mike Williams from San Diego Chargers, standing at 6'4", only 29 years of age. I made him my number 4 via trade wideout simply based on injuries. This guy's injured a lot, and he's a $20 million a season guy. If you're paying a guy that much, he has to be active. So let's get into it. In 2023, he had 19 receptions, 249 yards, 1 touchdown. He didn't play because of, once again, injuries. 2022, 63 receptions, 895 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not a bad season. 2021, 76 receptions, 1,146 yards, 9 touchdowns. This was absolutely his best year, and I remember watching him a lot for some reason. I remember watching the Chargers and seeing him a lot that season, and I was like, this guy is absolutely getting into it, man. Like he found his swag, for lack of a better word. 2020, he had 48 receptions, 756 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2019, he had 49 receptions, 1,001 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a bad season at all. 2018, he had 43 receptions, 664 yards, 10 touchdowns. Solid season. 2017, 11 receptions, 95 yards, 0 touchdowns. Once again, he has 1 year remaining on his contract. For the season, that's about $20 million a season for him. According to Draft Shark, he's about an 80% chance of injury. That is my number 1 and number 2 reason why I made Mr. Mike Williams my number 4 guy. 1, because of injury. 2, his contract is pretty steep for a guy who doesn't play at $20 million per season. All right, so moving on to my next guy, which is number 3, and he's with the same team. San Diego Chargers wideout, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen to me is absolutely a stud. He is what you would want in a wideout. Great hands, great route running, can take hits, not injured a lot. But let's get into it. So Mr. Keenan Allen is standing at 6'2", age 31. That's kind of one of the reasons I made him my number 3 guy, because at any moment when those guys hit the 30s, 31, 32, they could just simply fall off. But standing at 6'2", age 31, he has about 2 years remaining on his I take that back. He has 1 year remaining on his contract, and that's at $23 million a season. But the guy's worth it. Not the guy that really gets injured. According to Draft Shark, his injury rate or chances of getting injured, it's about a 33% chance. Pretty low. That's very low for a guy with his skill set. So in 2023, his receptions, he had 108 yards, 1,243 yards, 7 touchdowns. Listen to this guy's stats. Check him out, man. 2022, 66 receptions, 752 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2021, 106 yards, 1,138 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2020, he had another 100 reception season with 992 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2019, 104 receptions, 1,199 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2018, he had 97 receptions, 1,196 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2017, he had 107 receptions, 1,393 yards, 0 touchdowns. 2016, he had 75 receptions, 630 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2015, he had 70 receptions, 725 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2014, 77 receptions, 783 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2013, his rookie year, he had 71 receptions, 1,046 yards, 0 touchdown. When I say a prototype of a wide receiver, you would have to mention Keenan Allen amongst the wide receivers that's currently playing right now. This guy literally has just about every weapon that you would want in a wideout. And once again, if we acquired him, it would have to be via trade, and I have him via trade as my number 3 wideout. All right, now going into my number 2 wideout via trade, he could easily be number 1, like simply easy. And we'll jump right into it. But before we do that, one of the reasons that I picked Mike Williams and Keenan Allen is because of San Diego's salary cap. They're ranked number 29 as far as worst salary cap, and their salary cap right at this very day is $18 million. That's a lot. So they have to move some guys around. They have to release some guys. Will it be a Mike Williams or a Keenan Allen via trade? That's yet to come. But to get to my number 2 guy on my wideout list via trade, that would be none other than Mr. Courtland Sutton. Standing at 6'4", age 28, this guy can absolutely ball. And he was almost my number 1. Very close to being my number 1. Denver cap space is in a crap hole. They are currently ranked number 31 out of all the NFL teams. So they're next to last as far as being in a hole with cap space. A negative $27 million. So they absolutely have to do something to free up their cap space in order to start building or rebuilding for the future. Now, Mr. Courtland Sutton, in 2023, his receptions, he had 59 yards, 772, touchdowns, 10. 2022, he had 64 receptions, 829 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2021, he had 58 receptions, 776 yards, 2 touchdowns. 2020, he had 3 receptions, 66 yards, 0 touchdowns due to injury for lack of performance. 2019, he had 72 receptions, 1,112 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2018, he had 42 receptions, 704 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, in order for us to trade for Mr. Sutton, of course, we would have to give up something to Jets. And his contract is not that bad, guys. I'm sure you guys have heard this multiple times at this point, but it's really not. There's 2 years left. There's 2 years left on this contract, and he's averaging between $13-15 million a season. And his chances of injury via Draft Shark is about 56%, which is not bad at all. Not the guy that's going to always get injured, unlike some other wideouts. All right, so that was coming in at number 2. That's Mr. Courtland Sutton for the Denver Broncos. Now, coming in at my number 1, I haven't seen his name thrown around a lot, which, doesn't necessarily mean that he can't get traded. I mean, we saw with Tyreek Hill, anybody is possible. But this is kind of like a personal favorite, who I would like to see the Jets acquire. Could they acquire him? I would say yes if they're willing to. But that's none other than Mr. Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns. I know some guys may say, oh man, there's no way we can acquire him, but anything's possible. Anything's possible. If you move the right pieces, if he's okay with coming, I don't know what his contract, if he has like a trade clause or anything, but Mr. Amari Cooper, standing at 6'1", age 29, the guy's stats are absolutely mind-blowing, electric. Cleveland cap space, they're ranked number 24 out of the 32 teams. They're about a negative 1.5 million, which is not bad. You can really cut, a couple small guys that's on your roster, guys that barely made your roster. You can cut them and free up cap space easily. But you could also trade Mr. Amari Cooper to the Jets. All right, so he has 2 years left on his contract. Each season he makes about $20 million. For him, that's he deserved it. He earned that money, and he played like he earned his money. That's a guy that I would absolutely love to see on the New York Jets, lined up next to Mr. Garrett Wilson. All right, so in 2023 he had 72 receptions, 1,250 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2022 he had 78 receptions, 1,160 yards, 9 touchdowns. Beautiful. 2021, 68 receptions, 865 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2020, he had 92 receptions, 1,114 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2019, 79 receptions, 1,189 yards, 8 touchdowns. Now, the 2018 season was a split. That's when Dallas traded him to the Cleveland Browns. So I did a total. So 2018 with the trade total, he had 75 receptions, 1,005 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2017, he had 48 receptions, 680 yards, 7 touchdowns. 2015, he had 83 receptions, 1,153 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2015, he had 72 receptions, 1,070 yards, 6 touchdowns. This guy, in my opinion, will take us over the top. I know we talked about Devontae Adams. I think this is a receiver that sometimes doesn't get the highlight. He doesn't get the conversation started all the time. You don't start the conversation with Amari Cooper. But this is a guy absolutely who can destroy a defense. We've seen it time and time again since this guy has been in the league. So, according to Draft Shark, they have him at about a 37% chance of injury, which is absolutely beautiful. As you can see from the stats, this guy almost never misses games. And that's what you want to see when you're paying a guy $20+ million a year. You want to see that with any guy, but especially those guys, that cost a lot of money per season or per contract. Now, there is a guy that I didn't mention, but I would like to do an honorable mention for this guy. And the only reason he didn't make the list, and he almost did, he's a free agent wideout, and I'll go ahead and tell you who that guy is. Of course I will. That's the kind of guy I am. I share these things with you guys. But that's none other than Mr. Tyler Boyd, standing at 6'2", age 29. Now, the reason that I didn't put him on the list, but I had to give him an honorable mention because the guy can ball. The only reason he didn't make the list over the other guys is because I look at the guys that we chose. Either one of those guys, in my opinion, can be a number 1 receiver. I can't see Tyler Boyd being a number 1. I have him like a excellent number 3 and a solid number 2. And that alone, if Garrett Wilson goes down, are you comfortable with making Tyler Boyd a number 1? Because if he's your number 2, then he obviously goes to number 1, So that's the reason that that's one of the reasons that I didn't put him on the list, but I had to give him an honorable mention because he is a talented wideout. Now, according to Draft Shark and how they do the analysis, they have him at about a 39% chance of being injured, which is not bad at all. But once again, I do like him. per season. He could be asking anywhere from $8 to $13 million per season, which is not bad also. But anyway, I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on the wideouts that we named. Of course, I'll come in back with you guys. You know, we can talk football all day, especially here on the Jet Show. But without further ado, it is time for me to get out of here. I love spending time with you guys. I will see you on the next video. And the next one is about wide receivers, but we're going to make it about the college guys. And I'm going to put my spin on a video that has been requested over and over and over again. So I figure why not go ahead and do another one. So without any more topics to discuss at this very moment, I will see you guys later. But don't forget to like, follow, comment, subscribe. This is the Jet Show, and I am checking out. As always, go Jets.